Alright, hello people from the internet, hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The time has come for me to make another non-gameplay video, so here I am about to make the god overview of Fedhas, Madash. Fedhas is the god of plant and fungal life. Flowers are forbidden from harming any species under Fedhas protection. In return, Fedhas grants a number of abilities that promote the growth of plants and fungi. These abilities may incidentally prove useful to adventurers. It's very funny, like the way that the description puts it, as if, oh yeah, you just wanna like take care of plants and stuff. But in reality, the plants that you're summoning themselves summon stuff that explodes at monsters, like seeking missiles, pretty much, or summon Oklob plants which shoot acid at your enemies, or even protect you with briar patches. Um, but I think that one of the most exotic abilities that Fedhas has, probably the most exotic ability, is this one where you can turn dungeon walls and trees into plant allies. As you can see, it's very pricey. And you probably will have already noticed that this screen looks different from my previous overviews. In Trunk, very recently, it was made so that the piety costs of the abilities are a bit more transparent than they used to be, which, yeah, it is something that I appreciate. Um, but anyway, I think Fedhas is a pretty good god, pretty strong. Doesn't even require that much invocations. Of course, it scales with invocations very well, but you don't need that much invocations to summon Oklobs and stuff. Oklobs are really powerful because they hit with acid. So there's a lot of monsters, even endgame SOT monsters, that don't have resistance to acid. So having unlimited acid turrets at your disposal is pretty useful. And when I say unlimited, I mean unlimited in terms of they don't have limited charges of acid. They are not unlimited in the sense that you can just summon a million of them, unfortunately, because you're still subject to Fedhas piety costs. Mm, so yeah. I would recommend Fedhas as a hard carry god for characters that are very weak. As an example, I already have a run from Fedhas from not that long ago. Ever since I uploaded that run, Fedhas hasn't really been submit or subject to any changes. So you can look at it and see how a run with Fedhas looks like. The character was a debuff without really a lot of spells. It was using a launcher, and it was painful, but Fedhas made it so that I was able to do SOT 5. I don't really know if I would have been able to do SOT 5 without Fedhas. Onto Fedhas abilities. You can walk through plants and fire through allied plants. This is useful for many reasons. You can walk through fungi in Lair, for example, and break away from monsters. You can summon briar patches that surround you, and then you can run away as well, or you can just sit there and shoot at things until they break the briar patches, at which point you can retreat and have yet another wall that you can shoot through, but your enemies cannot attack you through if they're melee enemies anyway. So a fair amount of the abilities that Fedhas have has synergized with you having a ranged option, because it's very difficult for you to harm plants. I don't really know how you do it actually. I'm sure that the plants are just like going to not get hit by your stuff. Um, yeah, when it says followers are forbidden, it's more like you cannot do it. Not like you shouldn't do it. Um, the the reason why I mentioned that ranged characters are gonna be so good with Fedhas is because specifically with the Oklobs, which are probably the most important ability, but you can also see it with others of the abilities that Fedhas has, like turning walls and trees into plant allies, Baliistos. Um, those things are going to shoot at things like the enemies. So if you're too close to the enemies, you might get hit by the explosions from the Baliistos yourself, or you may prevent some of your Oklob allies from shooting at whatever you need them to shoot. So I would really recommend this for a ranged character. I think that it has a lot of synergy, and I would try it more often myself if it was not for the fact that I am not really a fan of the range rework. Um, but anyway, that explains the Briar patches. You can grow a Baliistos set. What does this do? It is a funny ability that says, um, hold on, let me. I have these. Yeah, I have another window of crawl offline Wismode so that I can read everything. So the game says grow short-lived Balistomy set at the location you choose. Balistomy set occasionally releases spores that quickly seek out foes and violently explode, damaging and confusing all living things caught in the blast. Um, Invocation's skill increases the health and duration of the Balistomy set as well as the damage of its explosion spores. You need to place it very close to you. It costs about 2% of your maximum possible piety. Yeah, that's what this means pretty much. 1 or 2% of your maximum possible piety. Um, just to let you know. Well, Briar's costs about 1% of your maximum possible piety, so it's very easy to just spam it. Ballistomy sets can be dangerous because the explosion can hurt you and confuse you, but you are gonna be okay as long as you manage to stay away or keep away the monsters that are gonna be targeted by the Ballistomy set. And as you can see, it's not really that expensive in terms of piety, so you can really use it a fair amount to deal with some scary monsters. Mm. You can transform dungeon walls and trees into plant allies. This is Overgrow. Permanently destroy a wall-like structure, growing a short-lived plant ally in its place. Even a tree will give its life to support the will of Fedhas, and only truly indestructible walls are immune to this power. You wanna know something funny about this ability? In the gauntlet, the wall that separates the start of the gauntlet with the Minotaur is not indestructible, the crystal wall. So you can finish, or you don't even need to finish the gauntlet. In fact, you can just go straight towards the wall where the Minotaur is, destroy it with this, make it so that the Minotaur comes closer to your newly created allies, kill the Minotaur, then do literally all of the options in the gauntlet with one single use of Overgrow. Overgrow is a very expensive ability when it comes to piety. It costs about 7% of your maximum possible piety, and you also don't really get it until like 4 pips of piety, so you need to have already worshipped Fedhas for a while in order to have access to that for the gauntlet. But if you can do it, you will be getting out of the gauntlet with significantly better loot than you normally would. Gauntlets, you often have like one really good item or artifact at the end of each of the options that you have, or otherwise interesting items. So by doing this, you just get everything, and you have a good chance of being super geared out. So yeah, in fact, I want to try that. I'm gonna have to write it down so that I don't forget about it, because I always start stream and I'm like, I don't know what to play now. Okay, I already wrote it down. Yeah, that's Overgrow. The last ability, probably the most powerful ability in terms of sheer combat might that Fedhas has, is the Grow Oklob ability. Grow a short-lived Oklob plant at the location you choose. These dangerous plants spray corrosive vitriol at your foes. Invocation's skill increases the health and duration of the Oklob as well as the frequency with which it sprays its acid. This does not increase the damage, as you can see, but or well, as the game says, but it's still pretty reasonable to get a good amount of invocations. I generally get around 15 or so when I go Fedhas, but you can definitely go higher than that. I think that Fedhas is a very reasonable goth to get 27 invocations with. That's great as with the Shining One, for example. I really enjoy the Shining One worshippers getting 27 invocations. even in a 3-run game, but it's definitely okay. Um, Anyway, as I have already mentioned at the beginning of this video, the Oklob plant ability is really, really strong. I have used it in the past. I have a run with a debuff character that was absolutely awful, and it was absolutely awful because I was not casting spells, because that's pretty much the only reason for, or like the only way that a debuff could be awful. Um, but thanks to Fedhas, I was able to win that game. The Oklob plans, I just summoned like 4 in SOT 5. It doesn't cost that much piety to do this. It costs about 4% of your maximum possible piety. But if you're going into SOT 5 with pretty much maxed piety, do note that having 6 pips of piety is not having max piety, but it is close to it. It's having 160 piety. As long as you have 100 or 6 pips of piety, you just keep doing stuff that Vedas likes. Um, and you don't use that much piety, just like getting to SOT 5, you will be pretty much guaranteed to have enough piety to spam Oklobs, like someone like 6 or so in SOT 5, and things will be okay. Um, so yeah, a really, really strong ability. It can take out anything in the game. It definitely works much better if you can somehow prevent the monsters from hitting your allies. Maybe hexes here could work. I don't know. I have never tried it, and I will most likely never do so because it is not really a playstyle that suits my interests, or my objectives when I start a game of Crawl. But if you like using hexes, do think about playing Fedhas and just like hexing stuff and letting the Oklob kill it in situations where you really need, a helping hand, of course. That's part of the reason why I'm not interested in doing it myself, because I feel like I will go too hard into hexes and I wouldn't be able to kill anything without Oklob summons. But anyway, um, those are all the abilities that Fedhas offers. Now let's see what this says. Plants and fungi will not attack Fedhas worshippers without provocation. This is a big deal, because some of the scariest enemies of Swamp specifically are plants and fungi. Drone hunters, shambling mangroves are plants and fungi. Leonomas aren't, somehow. Worshippers may walk through plants or fungi, and even fire missiles or spells through them without causing harm. As I already mentioned, it's pretty useful, pretty good. I think that Fedhas is definitely a good god for a ranger. Um, Fedhas grants powers to temporarily grow a menagerie of plant allies whose strength and duration increase with invocations skill. Worshippers may grow a protective wall of briar patches, as well as Baliistos missiles that fire damaging spores whose explosions confuse living creatures. Devout followers can overgrow a stretch of solid terrain with a cluster of plant allies, or even summon a mighty Oklob plant. Fedhas likes it when you kill a bunch of stuff. Um, and as you can see, well, not really. Back in the day, it used to be that what the god didn't like was also here. But yeah, Fedhas likes it when you kill things in general, even holy beings. Mm. Fedhas does not appreciate abandonment and will call down fearful punishments on disloyal followers. Those who offend Fedhas will have forces of nature invoked against them in the form of pure elemental destruction. Waves of Baliistom spores will rise from nearby corpses, and the worst offenders will be surrounded by animate mushrooms and acid-spitting Oklob plants. Pretty scary. As with all god rats, and I don't think that it's extra to say it every video, do not abandon the god unless you know what you're doing, or unless it's ignis, um, because god rat is bad and has a good chance of killing you. Pretty much every god rat effect can slow you or confuse you, in addition to whatever the god effect does. So like, even if you think, oh, I can just survive all of those things by escaping, what if you're confused or slowed? On top of that, that's like one action that you have to spend, getting rid of the confusion or the slow, and then you have to think about how you're gonna escape. Maybe abandoning a god will force you to burn consumables that you wouldn't have burnt otherwise. And like, yeah, consumables are very important, specifically scrolls of linking. Um, But anyway, that's Fedhas. Fedhas is a god that I don't really play a lot, but the few times that I've played Fedhas, I've been convinced. I don't know why I don't like it that much. Probably it's because it's too ally centric. I don't really do a lots of ally stuff. My favorite ability of Fedhas is the one that destroys walls, that turns them into plant allies that you can then proceed to walk through. Because of the gauntlet thing that I mentioned, it is a really really strong thing to do. Um, yeah. Mm. If you have played Fedhas, if you like Fedhas a lot, please be sure to leave some comments on the video, letting me know what kind of character you play Fedhas with. As I have mentioned, I don't really play Fedhas a lot, but I am interested in trying new things in Crawl. You know, it's kind of wonderful that I've been playing Crawl for 12 years, and there's still new things to check out and to, figure out new playstyles to explore. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, anyway, that's gonna be it for me tonight. Thank you for watching and thank you for hanging out. Do consider following on YouTube if you haven't, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And thank you to my supporters on Patreon: Anthony Emergence, Blink and Die, Dulos Ball, Fede, Frog, Enon, Graphophilia, and Shaper. I really appreciate that I'm starting to run out of space here. Might have to make a new picture instead of just adding things to the previous one. I appreciate you all for making me have to do that. I appreciate your continued support. It really helps a lot. You really have no idea. Like at this point, Patreon is contributing more to my livelihood and stuff than even Twitch does, which is pretty crazy considering that I've been doing Twitch for 3 years at this point, and Patreon I only opened it last year. It's not even a year old. So yeah, I think that choosing to open the Patreon was a big success for me, a pretty good idea, and I appreciate you all for making it happen.